fact frequently brings human beings behind to land quite rapidly. The two states are formally at warfare, and down there's no unanimity in Southward Korea on how to transactions in the fair, as down there's no actual unanimity in the US on how to transactions in Polar Korea, told Andrew O'Neill, Decan of the Griffith Industry High School at Griffith College in Australia. A error is frequently done how down there's a famine for a solution at nearly any price on the portion of the Southward Koreans. I believe down there were rather a few Southward Koreans who are really cautious of Southward Korean CEO Luna Jae-in's attempts to achieve out to the polar, he told. He's not precise if Pyongyang, happy in the tactful wins it supported for the 2 weeks of the games, will drag behind, restart its rocket tests, and go on in violent rhetorical to not just the Southward, but as well to Southward Korea's friend, the joint state. It has already reacted hostilely to crisp U.S. sanctions regime, inviting them an instrument of warfare. Several Polar Korea experts trust the Olympic pausing has taken into account the mode precious period to job on its nuke program, and how else start is just a question of period. Which matters later, is if how tactful advance is deleted in else start, and if the Polar is produced to miss how leverage at the spot in its renovated dialogue in the Southward, as the U.S. continues to see to stricter sanctions regime versus Pyongyang. On Monday, following meet in China defect Prime Liu Yandong at the President Castle in Seoul, Southward Korean CEO Luna Jae-in told the U.S. should ease its stance on preconditions for negotiations. Down there is a requirement for the joint state to reduce the limit for negotiations, and Polar Korea should show its readiness to denuclearize, Luna told in a declaration. Negotiations in U.S.? Luna told how same-day met in the Polar Korean deputation in Pyeongchang up the close right of the Winter Olympic Games and said them how Polar Korea-US negotiations should occur as quickly as probable. Luna in a declaration on Saturday told the Polar Koreans coordinated how same inter-Korean relation and Polar Korea-US relation should evolve along. We should not get them too severely, taking into account how the Polar Koreans themselves include not done any social ad how indicates any readiness to put their nuke/missile programmed on the spreadsheet as portion of a dialogue, O'Neill remarked. Recall the is a U.S. prerequisite for any significant dialogue. The White's building answered in careful hopefulness to Luna's declaration. We will see if Pyongyang's communication present, how it is readily to conduct negotiations, represents the at first stairs on the way to denuclearization, the White's building told in a declaration. In the meanwhile, the joint state and the planet must go on to do precise how Polar Korea's nuke and rocket programmed are a corpse late, the declaration extended. Joseph Siracusa, a prof of Humane Safety and World Public Diplomacy at RMIT College in Melbourne, Australia, told it wasn't precise which the Polar Koreans in Seoul were produced to do to preliminary world negotiations. Which we do aware, is I'm certainly how the human beings who are departure to the meetings are authorized to do several go on the, Siracusa told. The two sides will talk the Polars' participation in the forthcoming Winter Paralympics. The negotiations will be detained in the boundary countryside of Panmunjom on Tuesday at 10:01 am. Regional promotion win largest importantly, he says, Polar Korea's success games exterior, applauding squads, a amiable Kim brother and no defectors to the Southward, as well succeeded in drive a spike among Southward Koreans who wish reunion and convergence, and such who dong ti. Same Polar Koreans wish reunion, but on their regulation, told Siracusa. Same Southward Koreans would quite include a confederation in these human beings rather than a nuke warfare. And the has as well complex the Southward Korean Association in the U.S., he told. I believe it has complex the lifetime of CEO Luna, and if he will do thing in the Americans, he extended. Luna has a pledge via the Americans to say out of preconditions, but sanctions regime aren't departure off before the Polar Koreans do thing favorable. Which does how indicate? It could indicate whatever. Luna in the Medium Eurasia team told in a press briefing mentioned it believed it will be hard for Luna to suffer supporting for a Polar South Summit conference. It cited few polls show Southward Koreans' discontent in his decisions, consisting the forming of a collaborative females ice hockey crew, above 72% opposed he, and possessing athletes march by a solitary banner, just 40% backed the go. Besides, a Seoul College survey in January found just 4 persons out of 10 respondents religious how union was required, the team told in a declaration to the clique. Youthful human beings in their 20s and 30s are the largest opposed to the concept of reunion. The policy law, the Eurasia team argues, has been acute to criticize Luna's processing of the Spartakiada. Kim Jong-un's judgment to conduct a war pageant on February 8 strengthened suspicions amongst Conservative Party and the more extensive social how he is not operating in nice belief. Irrepressible ambitions. I expect how the will conduct to an enhancement in inter-Korean relations, not just inter-Korean relations, but we as well trust how down there has been slow, but slowly, a increasing unanimity on the requirement for dialogue among the joint state and Polar Korea, Luna said reporters on February 17. We expect how the dialogue among the two Koreas will be capable to conduct to dialogue among the joint state and Polar Korea, and ultimately denuclearization. Same newest U.S. sanctions regime, that foresee potential landing Polar Korean shallowware in strength, were followed by a subtly veiled link by Trump card to with war strikes if sanctions regime dong ti job, told Andrew O'Neill. The is anything new in U.S. politics, but it does be as a main fact verify in the persistence of the winter Spartakiada and hopes how inter-Korean relations may be incoming a new stage. The ties among the U.S. and Southward Korea is which analysts love O'Neill trust Polar Korea is hard to crack. I as well believe he's perhaps a way for the Polar Koreans to shove out future the perspective of war activity of the U.S., since as length as the Polar is seen to be charming in the Southward, they're not test rocket technology, he sharpened of. It as well gives the Polar an prospect to go on to search cache of the Southward, and any some accommodations it can get time fight in sanctions regime and supporting its failure to denuclearize, he added. Same Southward Koreans aren't fools each, told O'Neill. They've been downward the way lot times up.